In this video, I'll be talking about enterprise, business growth, and size. So first, let's look at the definition of an entrepreneur. So entrepreneur is the person who organizes, operates, and takes the risk for a business. Now let's look at the characteristics of a successful entrepreneur. So a successful entrepreneur is hardworking, risk taker, creative, innovative, optimistic, confident, independent, and a good communicator. The benefits of being an entrepreneur is that you have independence, your income might be higher than working for another business, you get to use your personal interests and skills, you're able to practice your own ideas. However, the limitations of an entrepreneur includes that there's a risk of business failure, you need source of capital and finance, and usually you would use your own savings. There's an opportunity cost, which is the possible income working for another business, and you lack the knowledge and experience to start a business. Now let's look at the business plan. So a business plan is a document containing the business objectives, important details about the operations, finance, and the owners of the business. So what's the purpose of a business plan? A business plan helps businesses gain finance, such as loans and overdrafts. A business plan could also help businesses plan carefully, which reduces the risk of business failure. Now let's look at the content of a business plan. So first we have the description of the product, and then we have the cash flow, the inflow and the outflow. Next we have the business costs, which are the variable and the fixed, and then we have the location of operation, and lastly we have the resources required. So here's an example of a business plan. You could pause right here and read through it. So now let's look at why governments support business startups. First of all, it reduces unemployment. It also increases competition, and it increases the output. It could also benefit society, and the business could potentially grow into a larger business. So how do governments support business startups? First, they would provide some ideas and help, and then they would provide premises. They would also help with finance, such as loans with low interest rates or grants. They could also help with labor, such as grants for training employees. And then they would allow businesses to use the research facilities. Now we can look at methods of comparing business size. So the first method is by comparing the number of employees. The limitation of using this method is that some businesses are capital intensive but still produce high output value. Another method of comparing business size is by comparing the value of output. The limitation of using this method is that high level of output doesn't always mean that the business is big. The third method is by comparing the value of sales. The limitation of using this method is that different businesses sell different products at different price range. For example, comparing luxury goods to basic goods. And the last method of comparing business size is by comparing the value of capital. The limitation of using this method is that some businesses are labor intensive and labor costs may be cheaper. So comparing business size is useful to investors when deciding which business to put their savings into. It's useful to government because larger business have higher tax rates compared to smaller business. It's useful to banks to see how important the loan is to a business. It's useful to workers because it gives them an idea of how many people they'll be working with. It is also useful to competitors when making comparison with other firms. Now let's look at the advantages of business growth. So first of all, they have higher profit for the owner. They have lower average cost. They have more status for owners and managers. And they have a larger share of its market. So how can a business grow? There is internal growth, which is when business expands its existing operations. And there's also external growth, which is when business take over or merges with another business. Now let's look at the types of external growth. First we have horizontal integration, and this is when business merges or takes over another business in the same industry at the same stage of production. An example of horizontal integration is when a clothing company takes over another clothing company. Then we have vertical integration, and this is when business merges or takes over another business in the same industry at different stage of production. An example of vertical integration is when a food company takes over a restaurant. Another type of external growth is conglomerate integration, and this is when business merges or takes over another business in a completely different industry. This is also known as diversification. An example of a conglomerate integration is when a clothing company takes over a food company. However, business growth doesn't always work out. The first problem is that it is difficult to manage. To overcome this problem, businesses could operate in small units. This is also known as decentralization. The second problem is that there is poor communication. To overcome the problem, business could operate in small units, and this is again known as decentralization. Another problem is that expansion costs leaves the business short of finance. To fix this problem, business should expand slowly and ensure long-term finance is always available. The last problem is that there is slow decision making. This could be caused by disagreements between owners. To overcome the problem, the business owner should learn how to have efficient communication between each other. Since we've already discussed why businesses would like to grow, now let's look at why some businesses would like to remain small. Some businesses would like to remain small because of the type of industry, the market size is small, and maybe because of the owner's personal objectives. The reality is that most business would fail. So what causes business failures? A business might fail due to its poor management skills, unable to adapt to the changes in the market, they have poor financial management, overexpansion could lead to business failures, or maybe they're unable to survive in the competitive market.